I love that the Dallas Cowboys did what the Dallas Cowboys do, but I also think that they can be contenders in 2025. I'll explain on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso, with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest story with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the data queen, Michelle Majuk. On today's episode, we obviously are talking trade. We're going to talk about potential veterans who could still be traded. We'll look at how the Steelers' plan so far has just been gross, honestly. And then we'll talk first about the move by the Dallas Cowboys, which I got to tell you, I am a big fan of. Before we dive into it, though, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. We get the big time trade for George Pickens. Personally, Michelle, I love the move. Look, will it work out on the football field? Will they pay him in a year? I don't know. But the Dallas Cowboys had gotten to a point this offseason where they were boring. The Dallas Cowboys were so boring. They were the most boring team in the division. And I don't know whether it's going to work out. I think that the Cowboys can win games. We can get into that. But more important than anything, I'm so excited that the Dallas Cowboys did something that the Dallas Cowboys should do, and they are exciting again.
Listen, they desperately needed a second wide receiver because they've been going with Jalen Tolbert or Brandon Cooks or, these random guys for far too long with CeeDee Lamb. And it's not like they got themselves a great running back in this draft class. I do love Jaden Blue out of Texas, but he's a smaller back. He's not really projected to be a lead back in the NFL. And Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, like their backfield is still going to be atrocious. So they needed to help out Dak Prescott. I mean, it's so hard to get too excited about the Cowboys because they did hire Brian Schottenheimer. It's like, how exciting is this team really going to be? But watching CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens play together will be a good time.
Well, listen, I am up or down about the draft pick of Tyler Booker at number 12. I mean, you look at the consensus board, but at the end of the day, it does get the Dallas Cowboys back to their ethos of having that bully ball lineup up front, trying to be real good on the offensive line. So they're trying to do that. They go out, they get that playmaker. So they didn't go out and get the big-time running back. I agree there, but they did add in the other places that I think could definitely help the Dallas Cowboys. And one of the things that I love about this as well is that George Pickens is a diva. Yes, he is. But if there's one place outside of Pittsburgh that knows how to deal with a diva wide receiver, it's the Dallas Cowboys. Dez Bryant all the way back to Terrell Owens and Michael Irvin before him. Like, they have had so many big-time personalities at wide receiver that this just feels right to me to go from Pittsburgh to Dallas. I know that not every team could take on a George Pickens with, just the football character stuff. I don't want to call him a bad person. He's not in trouble, but, he's just that classic look at me diva kind of guy. But that can work in Dallas. I just love this fit with CeeDee Lamb as well. I will tell you this, though, Michelle, somebody who is not as big of a fan of the fit is Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys.
I don't get this one from a Cowboys perspective at all. Like, he's not I hate to use the Jason Garrett phrase, but he's not the right kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And wherever he's gone, he has not been a winning player. He's been somebody that is very talented, that his physical gifts are unbelievable, but you watch him play over the course of a game and he does some really dumb things that caused his teams to lose. I don't think I would want to be in the business of trading assets for George Pickens.
I can understand that for sure. Like, if I didn't feel like the Cowboys were in a spot that they needed to do something like this, I probably would never suggest this either. Again, I also think that the part of the circumstance aspect of this makes this more palatable for us, right? Like the fact that it is a contract year, maybe that motivates them a little bit. Maybe it doesn't, though. I mean, the truth is Pickens has had plenty of plenty of motivation to play well and to kind of act right, and he doesn't. So the hope, obviously we're hoping against hope here on some of this stuff. But I think I would also like to point out that none of these solutions that anybody's going to come up with are without warts.
And that point is really good at the end, is there is no solution for the Cowboys at wide receiver 2 that would have been a perfect no-risk solution. They send a 2026 third-round pick, so next year's draft, and a 2027 fifth round to the Steelers for George Pickens, and then a 2027 sixth-round pick, which seems very inconsequential. So I guess overall, do you think they gave up fair value here?
No, I think they should have gave up more. Now, I am a Steelers fan, so maybe that's why I feel that way. The George Pickens hate is funny to me because, like you said, he doesn't seem to be a bad person. There's really nothing off the field. He gets frustrated when his team sucks and he's not getting targets and his quarterback is terrible. And that's what he's been stuck with throughout his career. So, he's not happy when he loses and he's not, getting the targets he wants. I think that's very normal for most of these top tier wide receivers, or I don't know if Pickens is considered top tier, but I think he can be. Yeah. So I think getting him for a third round pick is absolutely a steal. I don't really know what the Steelers are doing.
Yeah, I think that George Pickens, talent-wise, could be a top 15 wide. I mean, George Pickens could be as good or better than a guy like DK Metcalf. Like, if he was totally locked in at his absolute best, he has the talent to do that. I guess I think that taking a chance on a guy like this makes so much sense for Dallas and who they are that I just love the deal. And you're right. With that in mind, I have a hard time saying that they overpaid with some late round pick swaps and really just a third round pick. Whether they pay him or not is going to be the big deal. But what I would say for the Cowboys is, me and Luke Braun talked about this earlier, that if the Cowboys were to trade Dak Prescott, it only becomes financially even conceivable by June 1st, 2026. They would have to wait until after that. Lowers the dead cap to like $35 million. They take on $50 million the year after, but they save $40 million on next year's cap if they were to trade Dak Prescott after June 1st, 2026. So if this doesn't work, maybe you let Pickens go and you get a great comp pick the next year after, and then maybe you trade Dak Prescott to a team after that when you get to June 1st. And that all season, you kind of just totally scale it back. I love just going for it right now and see if you get a healthy Dak Prescott and you get CeeDee Lamb and you get an improved offensive line. They have really good talent on defense and still have, I think the Cowboys could absolutely maybe win the division, no, but win the wild card and be a team that you don't want to play the opening round of the playoffs. I may be naive there because Brian Schottenheimer is a guy that I don't really trust at coach, but I just love the talent that Dallas has. I actually think they have a much better roster than what I guess your casual fan would want to say about the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think they're definitely contenders for a playoff spot. And every year I feel like in the NFC East, they're changing division winners, right? So the Cowboys could be right there again. And this was just a great trade for them. So I'm shocked that Marcus Mosher doesn't like this trade because it only helps them. I mean, you get a massive upgrade at your wide receiver too. Massive. I mean, going from Jalen Tolbert to George Pickens could not be understated how massive of or overstated, I guess, massive of an upgrade that is. I just wanted to give a fun little note here about George Pickens. He's only had 10 career games with at least 8 targets. 10 career games with just at least 8 targets. He's averaged 105 receiving yards per game over those 10 games. But just to compare how crazy that is to only have 10 career games, CeeDee Lamb had 11 such games with 8+ targets just last season, in one season. So it's like George Pickens was not being used correctly, not being used enough. He had terrible quarterback play. This is a great, great trade for the Cowboys.
Well, that's the thing that I wanted to say is we can't sit here and talk about how the quarterback play for the Steelers has not been good enough for the last few years. And we're about to talk about the Steelers' long-term, quarterback situation. We can't have all those discussions and constantly bring that stuff up and then take it out on George Pickens when he's clearly frustrated by the same situation that we're all frustrated with. So I think that's something worth mentioning here as well. But let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, what they're doing, because they may have a plan, but I don't think it's a very good one. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game Every bucket, every stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. I love Game Time. I bought NBA tickets on Game Time, WNBA tickets on Game Time, football, baseball, concert, comedy, all on Game Time. Again, they have the last-minute deals that can save you up to 60% off. They have all-in pricing. They have a panoramic view from your seat. They have the Game Time guarantee, making sure you get the best price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, Michelle, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the George Pickens trade from the Cowboys angle. I think that it has a chance to make them a contender, and I love that it's a bold Dallas Cowboys move to kind of shake them out of the boringness that they had given us so far. The Steelers, on the other hand, though, I am continually perplexed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that they just believe in Mike Tomlin so much as a head coach that they're willing to just have these, strange plans, these huge holes on the roster. And I guess even if Aaron Rodgers comes to the team, which is what we expect to happen, I hate the plan they've had so far to lose Russell Wilson, lose Justin Fields, let them leave, to play Russ over Justin Fields at the end of the season, to neglect the quarterback position for as long as they have since Roethlisberger has been gone. They're going to say that they have a plan. They're going to say that they know what they're doing. They're the smartest guy in the room. But I just don't see it. And again, even if Aaron Rodgers signs, I don't like what their plan has been, and I don't think they're in a very good spot.
No, I desperately don't want Aaron Rodgers to be the Steelers quarterback just for multiple reasons. But there was one saving grace. It was Aaron Rodgers gets to play with DK Metcalf and George Pickens, and that is going to be, great because Rodgers still has a good arm. He can hit them deep. That made sense to go with these two things. Or if they didn't get Rodgers, you're like, okay, maybe Will Howard, the late round quarterback pick out of Ohio State, maybe he surprises us as a rookie. He had a great ending there at Ohio State. But again, now, no, because you took the whole point about trading for DK Metcalf was because the wide receiver room was so bad, so gross outside of George Pickens. And now you just made it so bad again because outside of DK Metcalf, there is no one else you can rely on. And Pat Freiermuth as a tight end is fine. He's a fine pass catcher, but not anything special when it comes to receiving ability. So I don't get what they're doing. I really, really want them just to tank. And they're never going to do that, because that's just not their way. And Mike Tomlin's going to win the 9 to 10 games, somehow squeak it out, get murdered in the wild card round. But I want them to trade away TJ Watt. I want them to stay away from Aaron Rodgers. And I want them just to tank this year and just be terrible.
I mean, they have to make some sort of move to correct this long term. And I'm with you there. That's what I was arguing earlier this week, that you might as well, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to commit soon, the problem with Aaron Rodgers waiting this long is you're not going to have the chemistry with your team. You're not going to know the offense well enough. You're not going to know your guys well enough. All the things that have been problems with Rodgers before are going to be problems again for you if you don't get him in early enough. So we could do that. Hey, we know he's coming. We feel good about it. Blah, blah, blah. That's great, but we're getting ready to go into OTAs. We're getting ready to go into mandatory minicamp. If Rodgers doesn't do all of that stuff with your guys, then you're already behind other teams who have more continuity than you, that have been together not only for OTAs and minicamps, but for years prior to this through OTAs and minicamps and training camps. So if you bring in Rodgers, you're not late. If you wait until training camp, you're only exacting a limited amount of value out of that transaction that you would be able to anyways. So then you're kind of doing hey, we want to win. If you sign Aaron Rodgers, you want to win. You want to go all out to win right now. Trading George Pickens is the opposite of that. So now you're going to get a limited Aaron Rodgers who comes in late, who's not going to have the weapons to truly maximize his talent. And again, you're not going to maximize your wins if you're going all out. You're going to be in that no man's land where you can't get your quarterback in 2026. And it seems like everybody in Pittsburgh, I sound like Wiz Khalifa, but everybody in Pittsburgh seems to think that that's the plan. And on Locked On Steelers recently, Dave Damashek, who's a popular voice for the Steelers, went and talked to Chris Carter about the Steelers quarterback plan and how he doesn't get it either.
Late as mid-December of 2024, that Mike Tomlin and that coaching staff apparently thought we can win playoff games with Russell Wilson despite the evidence in front of them. So it was a mistake to go down that route to lean into washed up 36-year-old Russell Wilson instead of leaning into at least the potential Justin Fields, which would have landed you with a quarterback on the roster right now. I feel fairly safe in saying that Justin Fields would still be the Steelers quarterback right now if you would have kept him in there or gone back to him at some point during the season. So that was a mistake to let him out of the building. Now a lot of people have decided that after they don't keep Russ or Justin Fields, despite R2 declaring that's exactly what they had to do. Now there is a master plan that has been forged, apparently, that they are now, they've loaded up on compensatory picks. The class is better for 2026. Now we'll just build the foundation all the way through, and then we'll drop that quarterback in 2026. And of course, that's built on sand too. Why are we doing that? Oh, because the class is better. The class is better. We don't even know who's in the class of 2026 yet. So kicking it down the road is just kicking it down the road as far as I can tell.
And I would say this, if your plan is to go with a rookie quarterback in 2026 and make your big move then, having George Pickens and DK Metcalf at the same time would be pretty good for a young quarterback. And because they're on a rookie quarterback contract, you'd have the money for that.
Listen, I will say they have been good at trading away wide receivers early, right? And getting rid of them before it, I mean, I can't believe to this day they got 33 overall, number 33 overall for Chase Claypool, right? So insane. They do know when to trade players. So I don't want to hate on them that hard. If they felt the need, they needed to trade him. Maybe they saw something that wasn't fixable with his attitude, or they knew they wouldn't want to pay him anyways, right? So they were moving on while they can still get compensation for him. Then fine. I don't want to hate on them too much for this move, but it's wild to me. They didn't draft a wide receiver. You traded for someone, but DK Metcalf, but you desperately needed that. Yeah. And then you signed, Robert Woods is slotted in to start for your team. Robert Woods, that can't be a thing with the slot wide receiver being Calvin Austin.
Yeah, and it's even scary. If Roman Wilson pops this year, the rookie out of Michigan from last year, him and Calvin Austin basically play the same position in the slot. So it's even if those are your top three receivers, I think you might have a hard time getting maximum value out of those three guys when two of them play a similar spot and one guy doesn't move around a ton. So I don't know. I just think the Steelers, they may know when to trade away wide receivers, but I don't know if they know how to handle the quarterback situation. It's been so many years of where there have been years where it's been outright insanity what they're doing. And I see Mike Tomlin right now as chicken Alfredo. It's like chicken Alfredo is better than takeout. You're going to get more points with your date or, your mate or your partner or whatever that you cooked rather than got McDonald's for them or something like that. So, but chicken Alfredo is never going to be the high-end dish. Chicken Alfredo is never going to be your carbonara. It's never going to be your duck a la orange. You know what I mean? It's good. It's reliable. It's going to get the job done. It's better than the crap, but it's never going to be higher than that. And I just wonder the further we get removed from that Super Bowl, it's a lot of remnants of the Bill Cowher teams, and he kind of took over and went in, kind of pulled a John Gruden with that one. And I just don't know if we should continue to give Mike Tomlin the credit that we give him here.
I think Mike Tomlin is the Phillip Rivers of head coaches.
That's great.
Phillip Rivers, I think, is probably one of the most overrated quarterbacks to ever play this game, and people want him in the Hall of Fame. And it's like he never won anything, never did anything. Right. He just threw a lot of yards. Like that's all he did. And he was good. Like he was a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He was fine. He was a good quarterback. That's Mike Tomlin. And I feel like it's a roller coaster with Mike Tomlin, right? Because you'll go through moments where you're like, he is so stinking good. Like he'll come through with wins, and you're like, how? And like really exciting moments. And then it's just by the end of the year, you're always at the same spot where it's like, meh, this Steelers team's never going to change.
Yep, they did better than we thought. My question is, if Mike Tomlin is getting more wins out of the roster than the roster's good enough, why hasn't the roster gotten better? You would think that the wins and the seriousness of the team would go up because the roster gets better. I just got a lot of questions about, and they, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, probably the best franchise in NFL history. That or the Packers, in my opinion. So you're not, who am I to sit here and question the Steelers with a Titans flag behind me? But at the end of the day, don't Steelers fans want more? Isn't this tiresome at some point? Geez.
Yes.
Anyway, we move right along. Something that also was tiresome is the trade rumors with Dallas Goedert and the Philadelphia Eagles. And luckily, we don't have to hear about those anymore. Today's episode is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. I know what it's like to need a freelance expert, whether I'm getting new logos for my content channels, whether I'm designing intro packages and things like that. Some of those things I definitely do need to find an expert, and hiring is fast and easy with Upwork. Free and simple, you can post your job and get qualified candidates within 1 day. Visit Upwork.com right now to post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, Michelle, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We looked at the Cowboys angle of the George Pickens trade. We looked at the Steelers angle, some different things. A lot of questions in Pittsburgh, but a question that we have an answer to now is what's going to happen with Dallas Goedert. The Philadelphia Eagles tight end was on the trade block. The Eagles were openly considering making a move there because they just simply don't have the money to pay everyone. But somehow, once again, the Eagles get it done. They get an extension done. And my God, the legacy, Louis DiBiase from Locked On Eagles, talked about the move.
The best news I've heard in a while. The Philadelphia Eagles and tight end Dallas Goedert agreed to a restructured contract today, keeping him as an Eagle in 2025. I'm Louis DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. The Eagles could not afford to lose Goedert this season, even if he's only a one-year rental player. That is far more valuable in a Super Bowl contending window than any late-round pick they would have got back in a trade. It did sound like they had offers during the NFL draft, but the Eagles wanted to keep Goedert on a restructured deal. And Dallas Goedert, it sounds like, according to Mike Garafolo of NFL Network, selflessly restructured. I wonder if he took a pay cut. If he did, I'm sure the Eagles did add some guaranteed money. There were no guarantees left on that deal, but he was so good in that playoff run. Third downs over the middle of the field. The Eagles need Dallas Goedert, and I'm so glad he's back for 2025.
Credit to Louis. He's been banging this drum throughout the entire offseason. He's been against a trade for Dallas Goedert throughout. He's talking about what he just said there. This guy is worth way more to us than any late round pick or anything like that, especially with the window the Eagles are in. I'm perfectly cool with the move. I like Dallas Goedert back to the Eagles. I think he would have probably not given them the value that they would have got in the trade, or, he's worth more than what they got in the trade. But that, to me, puts all eyes on Mark Andrews as the only veteran tight end who I think is truly available right now.
Yeah, I definitely had Mark Andrews down as a guy I'm eyeing. I think that he would just be so good for the Chargers too, right? And you have that Greg Roman connection, but we're all just waiting for the Chargers to finally give Justin Herbert another tight end, right? Like to finally give him that tight end since trading away Hunter Henry, or I don't remember if Henry left in free agency or they traded him. But I think it's a good move for the Eagles to keep Dallas Goedert around. They've been like this 3-man offense, right? It's as receivers. It's AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert. It's not like they've ever had that third wide receiver, that third go-to guy. And I don't know why you'd mix that up right now. So I think it's smart of them to keep Dallas Goedert instead of, like you said, trading him for a late round pick.
I think his versatility is huge. Just to be able to be a threat catching the football like that and still be big enough and strong enough to get involved in the blocking game, especially out of shotgun. I just think he fits perfectly with what they're looking for. And tight end is such a hard position to find out of college. Like, college tight ends just are not physically able to deal with. Tennessee Titan, former Las Vegas Raiders general manager Dave Ziegler, who works for the Titans now, said recently that tight end is the only position in the NFL where basically they're overmatched every single snap. Like, there are very few tight ends in the NFL who aren't overmatched entirely when they're lined up one-on-one against a defensive end. Like, tight ends are just not the athletes that defensive ends are in the NFL nowadays. So having a guy like Goddard who can do the job in the run game, expecting to find a guy that you can develop, and I mean, even with the Eagles being as good as they are, that's still very hard to find. I love the fit with the Chargers for Mark Andrews. I was thinking a team, may take a chance on him to pair him with a young quarterback, one of these young rookies. Maybe the Saints because Taysom Hill's injury status is up in the air. Having a blocker like that could make some sense. But I do love the Chargers. That's better than any of the teams that I thought of.
Yeah, the Chargers just make far too much sense. I mean, there's other teams, but like, it's like all teams with the best quarterbacks, right? That's where we want to see Mark Andrews go to. But like, the Commanders would have been really excited for him too, but they kept Zach Ertz around. So that would actually would have been hilarious if Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert ended up on the same team again. But yeah, I can't find a better landing spot for him than the Chargers.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I wonder, with Mark Andrews, Trey Hendrickson's situation still hasn't been figured out. I guess you could throw in Kayvon Thibodeau in New York after they draft Abdul Carter, and of course they have Brian Burns there. Those all make sense. Trying to think of Jalen Ramsey is still out there as well. I guess Ramsey is the best answer, but who do you think is most likely to be traded out of that group?
Well, we're also waiting on like Tyreek Hill, right? Is he going to get traded? So I do think out of that, it's either Trey Hendrickson or Tyreek Hill. Now, I don't know why the Bengals would trade Hendrickson though, right? Because you spent all this money on your offense to try to make this a Super Bowl contender, but then you're going to have absolutely nothing on defense. He's a stud. I don't know why they would trade him, because I don't think they'd get back anywhere what he deserves, what you deserve to get back for him. So I can see that happening though, because the Bengals are stupid and cheap. But no, I do think Tyreek Hill's the most likely answer. I don't know to where, but I think like the Broncos would be an exciting spot. I would hate this as a Steelers fan, but the Ravens would be an exciting spot.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Just off the beaten path a little bit, the Panthers. I don't think that Tyreek
Hill go there. Yeah.
Tetairoa McMillan, Bryce Young, Tyreek Hill, let's go. Anyway, with that crazy idea coming out now, that's about the time to shut it down. That's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On NFL podcast. For me, your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, my co-host, the Data Queen, Michelle Majuk, as we tell you every single episode. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there.
Bye, y'all.